Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Destructicon, and today it is my pleasure to bring to you my review and analysis of Total War 3 Kingdoms. After raising the bar with Total War Warhammer in terms of innovation and unique mechanics, the developers certainly had their work cut out for them on all their future games. But I am delighted to say that the devs really knocked this one out of the ballpark. 3 Kingdoms takes lessons from previous games and improves upon almost all to deliver an incredible RTS experience. Now, let's dive into it. Total War 3 Kingdoms is a turn-based and real-time hybrid strategy game from developer Creative Assembly and publisher Sega. In 3 Kingdoms, you are tasked with the conquest and reunification of China in the year 190 AD. The setting couldn't have been better chosen, as this was one of the most chaotic periods in China's history, when the old Han Empire fractured and the entire country broke out into civil war on such a scale and with so many alliances and betrayals that it makes Game of Thrones look like the work of a 10-year-old. And another reason to love the setting is the rarity of games covering Chinese history in general. Just as China was reborn during the fires of that period, so too the developers have tried to revamp the Total War series, touching on all the major aspects of strategy, politics, economy, diplomacy, subterfuge and war. And in many ways, CA have made great strides in each area, and I shall be outlining them below. To achieve your goals, you can choose one of several different leaders from the multiple factions. Creative Assembly have taken a lot of inspiration from Warhammer in their approach to diversifying the factions in order to get unique playing experiences and add longevity. The factions have their own distinct flavors. For example, the Outlaws focus on taking advantage of the chaos through ambushes and harassment to advance their goals, while the Coalition will generally focus on more conventional tactics. Even within the factions themselves, the different leaders have distinct playstyles due to units, buildings, bonuses, or entire mechanics wholly unique to them. For example, Sun Chen focuses on heroism, which is gained in combat, encouraging him to fight more, while Cao Cao, the master strategist, focuses more on diplomacy and is the only one that can incite proxy wars. In terms of game modes, you have the choice of playing the campaign in either the standard or romance mode. In standard mode, the game plays out more like Rome, Shogun, or Thrones of Britannia, with your armies having more importance and your generals being guarded by a retinue of soldiers. Romance mode is the more mythological version of the events. In this mode, your generals fight alone, and can challenge each other to duels. They are far more powerful and act more like heroes from Warhammer, able to single-handedly swing the tide of battle. I love the choice offered here as it honors both a historically accurate version of events while still allowing some players to experience the myth. The campaign is semi-story driven, with certain events in the early game following the history, but with some choices allowing you to branch out later. The events are displayed by a few timely but very stylish cinematics, as well as a few well-delivered narrations in the loading screen. Making use of the otherwise boring downtime of the loading screens is a particularly clever move, and I like how attention to detail was spent even here. Narrated events are context-sensitive, relating the heat of conflict when war is in full swing, or the tranquility of peace when you've managed to attain it during your campaign. On the topic of characters, while for the longest time the backbone of your success were the armies, in 3 Kingdoms the commanders themselves play a far larger role, being both generals as well as politicians. Your characters are also broken down into 5 categories, related to the 5 major attributes, such as inspiration, cunning, etc., with their different strengths and weaknesses. If you lack commanders to fill your general or administrative positions, you can recruit new ones from a constantly updating pool. When one of your characters levels up, you get a point to allocate into their talent tree. All of the talents will give some attributes with an emphasis on the main one, and most also have dual roles, giving them a political as well as an army bonus. You also have 3 battlefield-specific talents, different across general types, which help in a variety of ways, such as doing direct damage, debuffing the enemy troops, or buffing your own forces. My only critique here is that the talents are, for the most part, quite generic, and it would have been nice to see more variety from character to character. As you've probably inferred from earlier, politics now play a far larger role. As your power grows and you accumulate more territory, new administrator positions will open up. When you appoint an administrator, your faction gains some bonuses, and the region he's assigned to govern also gains a few unique bonuses depending on the general stats. Some administrators also have dual roles, both politician and general, while some can only take care of a particular region. Marriage also has a very important role, both for internal and external politics. Internally, it allows you to maintain your chain of succession and have new characters rise and enter your court. Externally, it allows you to forge alliances. Unfortunately, this isn't as useful as it sounds, as I've very rarely found the AI being able to accept a marriage proposal. To further add some spice and intrigue to this equation, we are introduced to the harmony and disharmony system. Just like in real life, the various members of your court will have different relationships, forming either rivalries or friendships. Your challenge will be to pair up those characters which can work in harmony, both as generals and as politicians. Failure to do so could have dire consequences, with some characters going rogue or starting civil wars. All this taken together results in a huge depth of strategic and tactical choice. You'll want to build a court which will work well together while at the same time also matching them with the appropriate regions to govern, such as a trade-orientated character in a region with a lot of silk or spice. This all ties in nicely to the economy rework in Three Kingdoms. Compared to the previous game, the economy is now a lot more in-depth and requires a lot more planning to get the most out of. This has been done by breaking apart the income buildings and also adding a new resource, food, in addition to gold. You'll want to develop your economy based on the resources available in your provinces, which are generally made up of your main city and a smaller resource town. Buildings in the main city will also critically affect production in the resource towns. The economy is broken down into three categories: peasantry, commerce, and industry, all with their different building chains, income levels, and additional effects. For example, peasantry produces the lowest income, however this building chain also produces food and affects population growth. Industry provides the highest income but has the highest research investment and has no other bonuses. Commerce provides trade influence and good income, but is also somewhat dependent on local resources. Your building chains can provide you with either flat or percentage-based income in one of the aforementioned categories. I love all these changes because you now need to both specialize and balance your economy across multiple provinces. On the one hand, you need to maintain a good stock of food to stave off hunger, supply your troops, and as a bargaining tool. But at the same time, you need some regions specialized in industry and commerce to have a good income, one that can support larger building expenses and armies. This can influence how you approach the game. Have a huge industrial area with good income but no food? Consider trading some food before you can invade a farming region. Now, for the longest time, Creative Assembly have been terrible at diplomacy. The AI was quite bad at offering context-sensitive deals, the diplomatic options were limited, and worst of all, you didn't really have a good way of measuring your success or failure. In Three Kingdoms, diplomacy has received a much-needed facelift. The deal screen is now broken down to show what you give, mutually beneficial clauses, and what the other faction offers. In addition, each item added has a certain score so you can track the chance of success. For example, offering to pay a food tribute for 10 turns will have a higher score than giving a one-time food payment. Requesting certain items will also have their own negative trade score. For a deal to be successful, you want to counteract the negative score of your request with the positive score of your offer. And as mentioned, you have a lot more trade options. You can now finally trade regions, you can arrange marriages, offer vassalage, or even request confederations. And, as implied earlier, success in a trade is also dictated by the relative strengths and weaknesses of the factions you deal with. You are far likelier to be successful in your negotiation if you, say, offer food to a faction which is lacking in it, than if you're trying to make the same deal to a faction with an abundance of food. Spying has also received a major change, one which fits in nicely with the more political theme of the game. In previous games, your agents were acting characters on the campaign map, and could be ordered to undertake certain actions by clicking on another character or city. In Three Kingdoms, agents have been removed from the campaign map, which solves the agent spam of previous games, which also makes them feel rarer and more like actual spies, acting behind closed doors. Spies will now show up in either yours or the enemy faction's character pool, and if a spy is then recruited to fulfill a general or administrative role in the enemy faction, he will be embedded and can start to gain influence. Once embedded, your spy needs time to build up his network and trust in the faction. When enough influence is accrued, your spy can take several actions, such as delaying armies or hindering reinforcements, opening the gates of a city, smearing characters, and all this all the way up to running for office. If your spy can get on the ruling council of an enemy faction, you can even trigger a civil war. And the Steam achievement hints that you can even have your spy become the faction ruler. But beware, as some spies can become attached to the enemy faction and could turn around and betray you. Lastly, but certainly not least, the army management has been overhauled. Each army can now have up to 3 generals commanding it, and each general can organize up to 6 regiments of troops, with the troop type dependent on the general type. This ties in perfectly with the other themes of the game, as you want generals which can complement each other in terms of what abilities and troops they bring, in addition to working well together. The regiments function similarly to Thrones of Britannia, where you can instantly recruit them, but they need time to fully muster the troops to max strength. In addition, a regiment will be reinstated automatically, even if it's fully wiped out, although this does take some time. These are changes which reward more careful planning, having troops ready at the right moment, while also being more active with them, as the punishment for losing them isn't as severe unless your general or entire army gets destroyed. Individual units have been reworked as well to be a lot more impactful in their correct role. Cavalry are now only 1/4 of an infantry regiment in number, making them a lot more fragile in direct fights, but very strong when doing charges from the rear or when sent against archers. Archers now run out of ammo a lot faster without an appropriate general, forcing you to target fire high value and vulnerable targets instead of allowing them to fire at will and waste ammo. Seasons have also been reintroduced and play a much larger role in 3 kingdoms. You have 5 of them: winter, spring, summer, fall, and harvest. Each season adds different effects which will alter your troops' performance in one way or another. Spring, for example, will bring in heavy fogs which can make it easier to surprise your enemy from unexpected angles, while winter blankets the land with snow, slowing down your infantry. On the campaign map, this also affects your supplies, with food being more plentiful outside of winter and forcing you to plan your campaigns accordingly. Excess food you produce also turns into supplies, which will feed your armies. If your armies run out of food in foreign territory, they take attrition damage, slowly dying out. This is a great and much needed change from previous games, as it not only influences the way you think about campaigning, but it adds a historically accurate representation of attrition. And more importantly, it solves the annoying raiding parties of previous games that would just enter your territory and stay there forever, harassing your economy with no downsides to them. The AI has also been reworked, especially on the higher difficulties, to take advantage of these new tactical considerations. For example, you won't see the AI on the highest difficulty waste ammo against shield infantry or high HP generals. I also feel like the AI has a ton more personality on the strategic level, as the various warlords will actually play to their different historically accurate strengths and weaknesses. You can expect to see Liu Bei forming more alliances, as this is his nature, just as much as you can expect Cao Cao to manipulate events to his advantage. The game is brought to life through some absolutely magnificent graphics. The strategic map goes a long way to put the glory of China on full display, from the open plains to the rolling hills and the towering mountains. Significant landmarks such as the Great Wall or the Yellow and Yangtze rivers can also be found, and mousing over them will bring up a snippet with more information on them. I also appreciate the smaller, finer details, such as the northern part of China being covered in snow during winter, while the warmer tropical south and desert regions are spared from it. The tactical or battlefield map has received the same amount of love, with unit models looking and moving great, and your generals standing out due to some truly spectacular attention to detail, with different models, mounts, weapons, and fighting styles helping to distinguish them. The sounds are all very well done, with the battles coming to life, especially if you zoom in closer, while being zoomed out to allow you to pick up on the various inputs from your troops, such as the archers telling you they've run out of ammo. A context-sensitive music score will also play in the background during your battles or on the campaign map. But I feel the game truly comes to life when the different leaders are interacting with each other. All the major characters have different voice actors, which go a long way in capturing the essence of their character. And unlike previous games, the leaders will engage in a lot more banter, either between themselves in the loading screen right before a fight, or right then and there on the battlefield.
I am outmatched! Retreat might be best! The time has come! Prepare! G!
There is great shame in your actions!
Victory at any cost!
It's surprising how far such a small change can really go in making all the characters more fun and likable. They now feel like actual people under your command, not just mindless drones receiving orders, and as such I felt more invested in all the fights, wanting to make sure my generals make it out of them alive. This has been one of the features I've greatly enjoyed, and I really hope CA continue improving upon it, as it just adds so much additional personality to the game. In terms of monetization and fairness, Three Kingdoms blasts most of its competitors clean out of the water. Firstly, you have no predatory microtransactions, just a base game price and no DLCs at the moment. And in the game you have such tremendous replay value from the different game modes, factions, characters and difficulties. When you also factor in multiplayer with online battles and co-op campaigns, I could honestly see this game being played for years to come. Total War Three Kingdoms manages to be more than the sum of its parts, taking many features, new and old, and striking the right balance between them all. And it does it through lots of little but loving and impactful touches, which ultimately bind it all together. A game that inspired me to look up more of the history of China and learn about the important people that took part in it. Some that would even go on to be deified, like Guan Yu, who would, for his bravery, go on to be dubbed God of War. For all this and more, I give Three Kingdoms the Imperial Seal of Approval, a resounding 9 out of 10. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing and commenting on it. I do my best to produce content regularly, so you can tune in next week for a new video. You can also find me streaming on twitch.tv/Destructicon, and also find some of my work on TL.net where I cover StarCraft 2. Thank you all for watching and have an awesome day.